so, yeah,
You all planning now yet?
sounds right. Yeah.
Digging, keep talking, planting.
Okay.
9 o'clock. We'll stand and say the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll consider for approval minutes and agenda.
I make the motion to approve the minutes and the agenda as presented.
I'll second it. On a motion from Smith and a second from Derby to approve the minutes and agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed. Motion carries. 9 a.m. Assured Partners to discuss with possible action health insurance. Morning.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see everybody. So I'll go through a couple pieces I passed out to the supervisors. I can email this stuff out to you, Chelsea, if you want to distribute, to those that maybe want to look at it. So we are here to talk about kind of the big, topic is always the health insurance renewal. We'll touch on all of the other benefit renewals too, but there's really not much changing as far as that goes. So first year, not first year, but back to Wellmark, as of 7/1 of 22, the Wellmark renewal came in with an initial increase of about 11.6%. So on the HSA plan, it was 11.64%, and then the traditional plan was 11.6%. So just based on how Wellmark rates those plans, there's a slight difference in those increases. When we got the renewal, we just based on the reporting that we get from Wellmark, along with the claims that we can now see from the partial funding, right? So we can see really well how the county is running as far as the claims that are coming in, and we felt that we were running really good. Obviously it's a shorter amount of time from when we moved to Wellmark. We don't have as much data, but we felt it was looking pretty good. So we went back to Wellmark, and that initial increase of roughly 11%, they gave us back 2 points, essentially, or 2 percentage points. So brought the renewal down to roughly 9.6%.
I would say, too, it's kind of cliche in today's world, but the medical trend is 9 to 11%, just year over year on the same claims. And that's been true for, honestly, like the past decade. That's why our rates are twice as high. I'd say the good news for us going forward is that our claims are way better than they have been in the past. So we can tell you exactly where it'll complete. We still have a few months to go, but we're running in between 78 and 82% loss ratio, which is outstanding. Like Brittany said, we were hoping for a little better renewal, but on our return to Wellmark, they're forecasting, in March when they're putting this stuff together or start the wheels going with only 6 or 7 months of claims. Seeing that trend number out there, they're kind of conservative. Now, there's more good news that Brittany will touch on with our partial claims looking really good, that we're going to have some opportunity to do some things and build for the future that we think is going to be really positive in a world where somebody kind of asks us, like, well, what about 3 years from now, what do you think it'll be? It's a scary outlook, but we think the plan in front of us puts us in a pretty good position to be able to manage these increases with the way our partial's set up to offset going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this next page we've got after the agenda is kind of some detail on how Wellmark comes to the increase.
An extra copy of that?
Yeah. Sorry, I missed putting in that packet. So that, has kind of some more detailed information. What? Do you have one of those packets? Did I give you one?
No, I don't have.
Oh, I'm sorry. There you go. I maybe corrected off the table. So that has some information on, how they come to that renewal increase. We won't dive much into detail with that, but Wellmark has kind of a base rate that they apply, to all clients, and then based on your demographics, your location, Winnebago County's claims, then they come in and that's how they kind of get to that renewal percentage increase or change.
There's one number on there that always strikes people a little odd, the area factor.
Mm-hmm.
And that they take, I couldn't tell you the exact kind of, the area, how many counties it is, but they break the state up into kind of quadrants, and we oftentimes get hit in the north. Essentially, the closer you are to Mayo, the higher your claims are, because Mayo doesn't discount their claims like everybody else in Iowa. So the Des Moines, Iowa City area factor might be a negative 0.18 or 1.87%, where they're seeing in our area more claims are not getting discounted compared to other parts of the state. So it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
So why is there not a group size adjustment for us?
We stayed relatively the same size, so like if we were
Oh,
If
it's
we
only
had-
if it increases or decreases.
Generally.
By a
Yeah.
certain amount, yeah. Or sometimes we'll see groups, maybe they start out in the 0 to 50 market and they hire a ton of employees, and then, because of that, Wellmark has to rate them differently. So we stay, typically, historically, Winnebago County has stayed pretty stable as far as enrollment goes. So next item in that packet is, some of you may be familiar with the side-by-side, and we can send this stuff out. Side-by-side comparison. This is basically just to show you and kind of remind you the plans that we purchased today from Wellmark. So these are going to be the higher deductibles, and then what those premiums are from Wellmark, what they are today. The renewal rates could change a little bit. I estimated the 2% rate relief. We don't have like the final, down to the penny numbers from Wellmark, but that should be coming this week, and then I'll update all of these documents. No plan changes that Wellmark applied to the plans, so that stays all the same. The next item that I wanted to touch on was the partial funding. So that's this next page here. So looking really, really good. So far into April, we have claims processed as of April 20th. So when we look at where we're at, paid out in claims from July to April, we've paid out roughly 150, almost 7,000 of claims out of that partial fund. And we have funded into that account 386,000. So we're doing really, really good as far as what's coming out versus what's been paid in. Now, if you think back to when we set those partial rates, we knew we wanted to set them high at a higher funding level to kind of build that fund up, give some cushion in case, down the road we have some renewals that come in at a higher level. So, but looking at these claims, we would say that it's running how we would expect, an average group to run with claims. So that's really encouraging to see that. And one of the great things about having a partial is you kind of get a little bit more insight as to what's being paid out.
This kind of completes or verifies that picture of our lower Wellmark loss ratio.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of checks each other out. Some years the partial can run really well even when our claims are bad, because we have two people at a couple $100,000. We're only paying out as a county X amount, but Wellmark's paying out a lot. So this is actually really good news kind of going forward on how we're looking.
So what we pay out through the self-funding, how is that determined? Is that a steady amount percentage?
That's what we did this year. We would say we overfunded it year one,
Right.
to not go in the hole and not have the money to pull from.
Mm-hmm.
And as we get a little further into this, our suggestion is to pull back on that funding to help offset offset some of the increase, because we don't need, we'd like to get to a comfortable number based on our experience over time. But it sure is nice to be able to use that to fit into the budget, try to keep deductibles low for the employees. Like it's a win, kind of a win-win.
So I think I'm going to, we'll just go over this page really quickly. This page is gonna be really small. I apologize, my printer for some reason put everything really small, so you might have to look close. But, so this is kind of just to show you how we come to those total premium rates, based on the partial funding. I think the more important sheet to look at though is the last page, that looks like this. So this is gonna be, what our 22-23 rates were, and what our 23-24 kind of proposal to the county would be as far as what employee and employer cost is on the premium. So I'll kind of walk you through what this spreadsheet shows. So over on the left, if we just look at where we're at today, that top box is our traditional plan. So you can see enrollment counts kind of at the top, 36, 14, 4, and 12. We move down from there and we can see the Wellmark premium, what we're funding into the partial, the admin costs, and then that totals up the premium, and then from there we look at, okay, what's the county contributing on the traditional plan, and then what is the employee cost. And then the line below that, we have what the percentage is for what the county contributes. So on the traditional plan, we know they contribute 100% of the employee only, and then 80% of all other coverage levels. So then the box below that is going to be the high deductible plan. So, essentially the same breakdown. When we're looking at all of the numbers and evaluating, okay, we're running really well on the partial. Last year we funded at, I think it was 65% usage. We got a renewal that came back from Wellmark, low double digits. We were able to get it down a little bit. We feel that, one of the reasons that having a partial is such a good thing is that you can kind of offset those renewal increases from insurance carriers because we have more cushion. So when we looked at it, we thought, well, I think we can make it work where employee costs can stay the same, employer contribution can stay the same, and basically what we can do is take that whole increase from Wellmark out of the partial funding kind of budget. So we reduce what we're funding into the partial to offset that premium increase from Wellmark. So what happens is our funding, goes down in the partial, but we're funding at such a high rate today that even with that roughly 9.5% increase, we still feel extremely comfortable that we're funding at a level that is sufficient to what the county would need to cover claims.
And I would say still overfunding.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So that's a good thing. Had it been a neutral, that we are right at where we expected claims to be, we'd probably have a different conversation that of where do we want our fund to grow to, and we may have made different decisions, but I would expect us to still grow it in six-figure amounts, which is plenty of growth in a year. It gives us a little ammo next year too. So I feel like we're in a pretty good place to have a multi-year, not have to feel a really big increase.
The other thing I want to mention too on the partial, so when we moved to Wellmark, we had a change in copays. For the primary care visits and specialist visits, copays went up. I think they had been 20 or 25 for both, and those increased. And so just again, based on how we're sitting with the partial and analyzing the numbers, we thought, well, what can we do that would maybe help offset some of that cost increase that employees saw last year with copays? And can we take some of the funding out of the partial to kind of offset that? So what we can actually do, so I mentioned earlier, the Wellmark plan designs aren't changing. They don't usually change those much from year to year. And we thought, well, what options do we have? Midwest Group Benefits, so they're the third party that administers the partial. They have the ability to kind of, I don't know how you would call it, like
Kind of buy down the
Yeah.
co-pays.
buy down the copays. So Wellmark will say you have an $80 specialist copay, but when that claim comes through from Wellmark to Midwest Group Benefits can put something in their system that says, you know, ding, 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 that should be $40 instead of $80. And then a check would go to the employee. Typically, copays are paid at the time of service. I think that's probably how they would do it to help offset some of those costs. So we thought that would be a nice kind of benefit to employees after that large increase last year. So, you know, obviously we want to know how much that's going to cost because we weren't sure, well, what did the specialist copay count look like? You know, maybe it's such an exorbitant amount that that's going to pull a lot of money out of the side fund. So we had Midwest Group Benefits run the numbers, and they had a total of 104 specialist visits from July to April, so mid-April roughly. And if we were to fund that down from 80 to 40, it would cost an additional roughly $4,000 out of the partial, you know, over the course of those almost 12 months. So in the grand scheme of things, where we're sitting with the funding right now, that's not a terribly high amount at all.
Would you say too, Carla, just from your feedback, I feel like Wellmark's gone pretty smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably been I would say maybe the biggest.
The biggest
The
complaint. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we were in a tough position last year, and I think the employees understood that, you know, that gigantic increase.
And our copays actually went from 15 to 40.
Oh, it was 15, okay,
Mhm.
yeah.
So, I mean, it was a huge jump. And it was specialists too were 15. So
Right.
15 to 80. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are big.
it's a big jump.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially for people who maybe have a chronic condition that they're seeing a specialist even just once a month. I mean, that
Mhm.
adds up. So,
We think this new plan is more, you know, we were on the very high end of copay. Well, we were very, very rich
yeah,
with the 15 was as good as it gets. And then we went to kind of the high extreme of, wow, these are high copays to, can we meet in the middle and keep our plan moving in the right direction? And for that amount, we felt like that was a pretty fair trade and something positive to tell the employees at the meetings.
So your target is 20 then?
No, 40.
40?
40 just for the specialist, to move the specialist from 80 to 40. So then all the copays would be 40.
questions from
I have
so
a
far?
question.
Yeah.
You talked about the claims that have been paid.
Mhm.
I'm curious if you have those broken down between traditional and high deductible plans.
I don't right in here. Can the
Yeah,
can
we
Midwest
can
Group
do
Benefits do
that.
that? We can get that data. Yeah.
I don't know when the right time is to sort of ask the question, but you know, the people with high deductible family plans last year saw by far the biggest increase on their on their paychecks. And so I feel like there's not enough incentive for people to switch to the high deductible plans when it's the cheaper plan for the employee and the county as well, we think. But we need a little bit of data to back that up.
Yeah.
And maybe with that, Brittany, do you have the net exposure comparison for this new year?
As far as
You had that spreadsheet that
Yeah.
compared the net exposure between the two?
yes. So we've got net exposure for the high deductible, 119,000, like the total net exposure. If that's what
Are you
you're
looking
thinking.
for dollar amount?
For per plan, like for the single family child.
Oh, yes, okay, so single, like, net exposure for the county, $3,500. So the out-of-pocket would be 6,500, buying down to 3,000, so difference of 3,500. For family, it's gonna be 6,000, so 3,000 and 6,000, single family exposure. And then on the traditional plan, we've got the exposure for employee would be 2,000, and then all other coverage levels would be 4,000.
So the way, and I get, I mean, I think that we can definitely run that report, that makes sense, because what if we're running at 10% loss ratio on the HSA? Can we reduce our funding more? You know, on that part, is that, I mean, is that?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to say, and
Yeah.
is, can we reverse some of that in proportional increase that the high deductible plans got last year?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Possible, so like if, on our numbers right now, so 290, or in the new kind of proposal, we go from 354 on the traditional plan, single funding, down to 295.
Yep.
That's kind of where we're coming up with that, we were overfunding too much before. We're gonna be funding on the HSA plan, so if we compare the 295 traditional, it's 126 a month on the HSA. So we're not, could we reduce that? Possibly, but it's not the same funding going into those plans because it's a percentage based off risk. But I'm with you in that,
yeah,
that
Yeah.
that's something we can definitely look at. And, yeah.
yeah,
It's the big problem with Wellmark, like we think the risk is in line between the two plans, that it's fair. The data, and every year can be different. We have, especially with a smaller number of folks on our HSA, if we have four people go sideways next year, it might say it's an 80% loss ratio. Well, is that realistic? Not really. The problem, in my opinion, goes back to Wellmark really rates their family plans high at the start. Their base rate was just so much higher than our health partners rate that it's almost impossible to come back from. No.
So you're saying that the two plans, the 65% is supposed to be accurate for both? Or there,
It is
whatever
historically.
percentage is supposed to be similar?
Yeah.
And then, like, the amount that's covered between, the plan and the partial self-fund is bigger for the HSA plans than the traditional plans too, isn't it?
Repeat that.
Like,
last.
how far our partial self-fund buys down the plans? Isn't it higher for high
Yeah,
deductible?
the
like the
the
net
exposure
exposure.
per unit.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
So last year Brittany helped me look at that spreadsheet. So
Mm-hmm.
looking at your new numbers, the exposure per unit for the high deductible plan ranges between 2,100 to 4,200, correct? For the high deductible?
No one, okay, let me,
2,100 for single, 42 for each part of the family.
exposure per unit.
It's on them.
is it after like if you take the percentage, like,
Yeah, assuming the 60.
Yeah, assuming the
Oh,
60%.
gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Below
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
So that ranges from 2,100 to 4,200 for
Yep.
the high deductible plan.
Yeah.
That's how much the county collectively will put into the bank for those per unit.
That's exactly right.
yeah,
So then for the traditional plan, it ranges from 39.30 to 70.60. I think that's what Scott's saying. Those cost the county more
right,
for people to be on those. And so, like I said, last year you helped me look at the numbers. So now with these new numbers, it looks like the traditional plan costs the county at their 80% share about 1,400 to 2,900 more.
more,
And that's what, to Scott's point, we're wondering if to help incentivize people to move that, how that could look.
yeah,
Sorry. I mean,
No, it's okay.
A lot of numbers to
Which,
Yeah.
talk about.
yeah, I know,
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't disagree though with
Yeah.
your thinking. It is a little risky with the small number, but what is our goal? Is it to,
Right.
do we want
Right.
more to the HSA?
Because
Right.
you're, like a traditional, you're paying down from that, what is it, 13,000-ish? To make, or no, 17,000 to make it feel like 4,000.
right,
Yeah, right, on the
And
out of
that's your-
pocket.
Your exposure then with your usage rate, so. Brittany spent, like I said, about an hour looking at this with me. Was it in the fall maybe?
mhm,
We just wanted to highlight that the traditional plans are costing more of that self-fund bank contribution.
right,
So we're kind of just brainstorming what it may look like to help reduce that by getting more people onto the high deductible plan, whether that's a rate decrease or an HSA contribution or something. I don't know what you've seen in your,
Yeah, I mean, both.
yeah, yeah, sometimes.
Generally, yeah, go ahead.
Sometimes groups will do both, you know, they'll do a rate decrease and a contribution to really push people. And oftentimes, you know, even that first year that you introduce things like that, there maybe isn't that much movement quite at that time, but I think over time, people start looking at the numbers and seeing, well, my out-of-pocket is, you know, is a little bit more on the HSA if I'm a family, for example, but the cost of the premiums and in addition, the county contribution to the HSA makes those amounts lower, so. So yeah. I think I'm really interested to see the claims breakdown of, yeah, between those two plans. So that is something that we could look at.
I mean, I guess in this proposal is looking kind of at a neutral, you know, our initial goal is can we not take anything more out of people's paychecks?
yeah, right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Do we, you know, there's multiple ways, and I can't remember offhand, do we negotiate that single, or like we pay 100% of the single copay? That kind of, and that dictates how everything else trickles.
Mhm.
I mean, the other, then that's where it gets difficult in the budget to, if we want to collect the same amount, do we lower the HSA and increase the partial on the copay? Well, that's gonna increase the cost.
Yeah, I understand the money has to come
Yeah.
So I know I'm arguing against traditional plans here. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
understand that, and
Yeah.
maybe that's not popular, but
No,
I think it's a better plan, so that's what I'm arguing for.
yeah.
So there's other advantages though with HSA too, that maybe everybody doesn't understand.
Yeah,
Just for everyone's, if you wanted to say what that is.
yeah, yeah. So there's lots of tax advantages. I think that's something that a lot of people maybe don't realize. But you can put, the IRS sets contribution limits, which I have not been able to keep the 2023 numbers in my head. So I don't know if you know those off the top of your head. It's like 3850
Yep.
maybe for single, and then 78
50, I think.
7850 I think for family. But don't quote me on that. Look it up when you leave the meeting.
They'll
But
go up $50.
yeah. So and
Every
those
January
increase every
1st.
year. But so you can put money pre-tax into those accounts to pay for medical, dental, vision expenses for yourself and any dependents that you claim on your taxes. So they don't even have to be enrolled in the health insurance through the county. You can still use those funds for that. The money goes in pre-tax, it comes out tax-free, and then any growth that you have within that account is, not taxed either. And so some financial institutions will allow you to invest. Once you get a certain balance, you can invest those funds. And it's a great way to just kind of shelter some money from taxes and use it to pay for, your major medical expenses, you know, you can keep that account even when you leave the county, so that money, it's like your own bank account, right? So it stays with you when you leave. If you're on an HSA or a qualified high deductible health plan at another employer, you can still can contribute. And then a lot of people use that money when they get to the point of retirement, and I think you can use it to pay for some Medicare supplement
Yep.
premiums too, so that's a great way to kind of put money away, thinking ahead for that. Yeah, I don't know if I'd add any other benefits.
Yeah, I mean, generally, and I think our situation was unique, particularly on the family plans. Generally, once people go to an HSA, they don't usually go back.
Yeah,
There are situations where it
But-
makes sense
yeah.
monetarily. But they're very simple plans to understand compared to co-insurance, co-pays and everything else too. I think people like, tell me what my worst case is and I'm gonna pay till I hit it versus, well, now I'm in this 20% zone. I don't know how that works. Like, sometimes I get a big bill, sometimes I get a copay, like it's, but it is, I mean, I'm a big fan of
Yeah.
HSAs, and I think the consumerism, particularly with prescription drugs, and there's some that are on TV that there's no way around getting them. But there are some out there that you can ask your doctor to switch to, and if you're on a copay, you're less likely to do that when you switch to an HSA and you're like, that one was $800 a month and I could have been taking one that's $40. Well, that $800 goes against our claims, goes against our loss ratios. I mean, it's, you guys know the
Mhm.
yeah,
positives.
yeah.
But I think, you know, maybe Brittany can help check the math on that, but she helped me see though that, like to Susan's point, the other advantage is if the math's right, the county could save $1,400 to $2,900 for every person, depending on which plan they are, that switches based on the exposure at that 60%. So that
Right.
alone too helps
Right.
save our exposure amounts.
Yeah.
So what do we what do we think next steps are? I mean, I think we can get that data. And be back, you know, and have a meeting next week if that's the direction.
Still have to look at the numbers of the people that are on the traditional versus the people that are on the other plan.
I know we have at least 13.
On the HSA.
We've got
Yeah, 9. Yeah.
21 to 52. That's right. So a third,
Yeah.
roughly.
Yeah, because I know not everybody has the high deductible puts money into there. You know what I mean? So that's what I was thinking. That I know 13 people put in money.
Oh,
I guess
Oh,
in the high
okay.
deductible item.
that contributes to
yeah,
that
yeah.
account. Yeah.
Good
I
point.
think some fund it themselves
Right.
Yeah.
at the end of the tax year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess the thing for us, like we, I mean, I'm kind of repeating, any lever we touch is gonna impact. So
I think you need some direction from the board, obviously, on how they want to see that, but, you know, last year our monthly premium for my plan went from like 0 to 300 or whatever.
11 to 329.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
An
quite the jump
exorbitant
for
jump.
sure.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
so like I don't feel terrible if the traditional plans increase a little more than the HSA plans, because we saw that last year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if it went the other way this year,
So just to make it a little more equitable is,
Well, everybody saw it last year. It was a 25% increase.
yeah,
Right, but it was felt more by our plan.
with the HSA.
that's why I
Employees
was trying,
not
that's why I was trying to see if there was a balance there of, that it was more valuable because of any other additional advantages.
I think you explained it, Brittany, the pricing on Health Partners was different than the way Wellmark looks at the high deductible plans.
Yes, yeah. Health Partners historically has rated their HSAs much less expensive, I think is how you can say it, compared to Wellmark. And so it makes it really tricky when you do a carrier change because for the traditional plans, Health Partners and Wellmark kind of look at those the same. But for HSAs, it was so incredibly different. That, yeah, and Health Partners, I would say, is unique in that compared to all carriers, not just
Mhm.
Wellmark. So it does make it hard.
I think to Scott's point then, you know, our rates went up almost $300. And then the plans apparently are cheaper in terms of the exposure per unit. And so how do you kind of balance that out a little bit?
Yeah, it's hard to give you, here's what we think without having all the numbers, but, you know, what if it was like a 10% cut for the HSA plans or something? Knowing that the employee saves money and the county saves money.
Then there'd be a way to take that out of the partial self-funding buy-down, or?
It'd probably be adding it to the other plans, unfortunately, right? I mean,
That would, I mean, if, yeah, I mean, that would be that'd probably be the safer way if our goal is to
Yeah.
continue to build the side.
You could do a contribution from the self-fund bank too, right? Kind of
Yeah.
depends how you look at it.
again, yeah, like you said, the money's gotta come from somewhere.
Yeah.
The only other
Right.
places from the other plans or from the balance.
Right.
Yeah, that's
right.
exactly right.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think it depends on how much you guys wanna say we do wanna incentivize HSA plans. I don't think you've said that in the past, that you wanna incentivize that.
Well, I did from the beginning,
Okay,
I
yeah.
like HSA.
And I had a bad taste in my mouth from the complications with my wife's plan and
Oh, and then,
mine, and trying to go to HSA was impossible.
Oh,
for me.
yeah.
that's right.
Yeah. It's tough
So,
for mid-year.
Two different worlds there
Yeah.
colliding. But I'm sure it works good to those people that planned well. But like you said, there's still tax advantages to the people that are on HSA, so we've got to balance that to, you know, keep their costs down and still allow them those advantages. So you're saying a 10%?
He was just throwing it.
Well, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
equate that in my head, how
Right.
that works and how it benefits. So, yours went 329 was it last year? For instance.
Yep.
Yeah,
So 10% off of that would be, you know, $33 off of that, right?
I suppose.
Yeah. So,
I mean, if you take 10% off the entire premium and then have the employee pay what the traditional people are paying, then it's even more. I don't, it's hard to explain, but, you know, what we pay is, I don't wanna say that, the same as what the
county-
traditional plan.
The county
There's a-
puts towards the high deductible plan what they put towards the traditional plan.
And it goes, you know, a lot.
And that's 80% of
Versus-
the,
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So, like today, the county contributes 80% of the total premium to family on the traditional.
And that's a certain dollar amount.
yes.
Yeah,
And so that same dollar amount,
to the HSA would, yeah, I see what you're saying. So like, yeah,
and we do the same for the HSAs, 80%, right?
It's
It's a little
the
different.
same dollar amount that you put towards the traditional.
Oh,
It's like
yeah.
a budgetary,
Budgetary,
what
yeah.
you're used to paying, you pay towards the high deductible plan.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so let's say 80% of the traditional plan is 2,000. You give 2,000 toward that policy, but also the same 2,000 toward the HSA policy. Whatever the remaining balance is, the employee pays. And it used to be almost zero.
$11. It used
Yeah.
to be.
Yeah,
And now because the plans are closer together, it got to be more.
right, right.
329.
Because we kept that same kind of principle or methodology when we moved to Wellmark.
And that's what I was hoping, Brittany would be able to double check is if my math's right, it appears that every person that switches is about 1,400 on a single plan or 2,900 savings in that exposure. So that's another number to look at too.
Right.
So you're saying when we left Health Partners, we didn't really change how we were doing it?
We basically were worried about figuring out the budget for the traditional plan and letting the dominoes fall from there. And I would say that's pretty typical, just because you
Yeah.
almost have to budget-wise. We're just in like we've talked about, it was a tough deal for a lot of folks on the HSA because those premiums were a lot closer. So we're probably at a point where if we want to continue that model, we would have to essentially increase the employer contribution up above to filter down, or to change our philosophy and do an HSA contribution or something that might be better budget wise too, that it's not
Is it gonna be hard to budget though if people are switching?
yeah,
Of course, there's variables in everything.
there is.
Yeah.
But
Hires add a family or.
That's true.
Exactly, yeah. Or you have 10 families switch over to the HSA, regardless of any change.
Could we get to a comfort level though of like we're kind of happy if they move, and I think that's your
Yeah.
guys' point. Like
Yeah.
from our side fund claims, if we said, well, twice as many people go to the HSA, it cost us X, but we think it's going to save us X on our claims. We can live with that. That to me is probably a better solution for the budget than the trickle down, because the trickle down's everywhere, and we're back up to growing our side fund probably more than
Yeah.
we need to. We don't want to cost the employees money for this rainy day fund that gets out of control.
Can you come up with those numbers at different levels?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If
We have choices to
then,
look at,
yeah.
How it affects
We had to
everything,
look at it, yeah.
and then get the data they were looking for on the actuals.
And I think going about it that way to protect the budget, I don't envision a huge migration, because the premiums will stay the premiums, what's coming out of my check. I think there'll be some, and hopefully people do the math because we want there to be some. So I think we're in a pretty good spot, budget wise, to now everybody moved and now what?
Worst case scenario or best case scenario.
Yeah.
If everybody moved,
Yeah,
isn't that a benefit to us?
right. That's exactly right. So I think we're in a spot to be able to do that and not have a worst case. The worst case scenario is not bad. It would be. I guess the worst case scenario for the budget, but I think that it's fair is that if everything stayed the exact same, our current HSA folks are getting a bump. So like if there literally was no movement, compared to what we're seeing on this option today, we're out X amount of dollars. But those folks took a hit. They have risk. We want there to be an HSA plan, and we want, I think going forward, we want to encourage or hopefully get to a point where more and more are choosing that too. So I think that's not a bad trade.
Well, I think if you can come up with that data for us and to look at, I'd be willing to look at different options.
Me too.
Works for us.
Yeah, yep, we can definitely do that. And then we can get the claims data too, broken down by plans, just to see where that kind of falls.
All right.
I'll just
Oh,
run through
yeah.
really quick, sorry, the other
Okay.
renewals, just so that, everybody is aware. The Blue Dental with Wellmark, no change to rates or benefits. Avisa's Vision, we're in the middle of like a 2-year rate lock. You may recall those rates increased last year a little bit. No change there. And then for all of the life and disability benefits, there's no change to the rates there. Obviously, if an employee moves to a new age bracket, then you'll see a little bit of a cost jump. It's a 5-year age band, but like the overall rate tables are not changing. So everything else is kind of, status quo, no changes with that. That's all I have.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for the conversation.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Thanks.
If you do get that information put together by the end of the week or something, you wanna
For sure.
send it out, and
Yep.
she can get it to us to look at.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep, we can definitely do that. I wouldn't think it will take that long
Yeah.
to get.
It's a lot
And
for
do
me
you
to
wanna
absorb
be
this many
on the-
numbers all at once.
Yeah, it is a lot. When you have the partial funding, it throws a whole nother thing in there, so. Yeah. So we're gonna-
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Ross. Thanks for
All right, so we tabled that. Julie Sorensen, Public Health to discuss with possible action, sanitarian position.
I'm setting up a meeting. I wanted to discuss some of my candidates with Mike Galloway for next week. So I have nothing for you at this moment.
Okay. All right. Scott, what do you have for roads?
Talked about it last week, probably talk about it every week. We are starting our rock run, right? We talked about it last week. I thought maybe it's worth some more explanation. Right now, our guys are hauling rock from stockpiles in Buffalo Center to Lincoln Township around Rake. And they're making loops between those two destinations back and forth. So that's maybe 7 trucks making loops and making a lot of dust when it's dry out, especially when it's windy. And so I know that can be an inconvenience. That's part of our annual maintenance for granular surface roads. So every year, between our staff, we choose 23 miles per blade route to cover with rock or gravel or a combination of the two. So that's 161 miles, give or take, that we touch throughout the summer and cover each mile with about 300 ton. And many people will notice that some of that material is white, some of it is red. That's because we use 2 different materials. The white is limestone from Fertile. The red is gravel from what we used to call our Aukus pit. Now it's Lewis pit. And that's mined out of the ground and crushed and to a 1-inch specification similar to the limestone that comes from Fertile. We choose which roads to put down which material based on mostly traffic and the condition. limestone being more coarse, so gives us better strength. Gravel being more economical because it's in the county, and also less dusty and has, I'd say, a better crust, more of a pavement-like driving surface in the right conditions. So we're also using a combination of those on some miles, mixing rock and gravel and trying to get the benefits of both. Early on in the spreading, if there's traffic on it, they'll notice that it's very, very loose. Gravel and rock are both that way, and also can be a little slimy if it rains afterwards. That's all normal, and there's a healing process where, you know, it consolidates under traffic and, you know, it improves the condition of the road. So we do get a lot of questions and calls about that. Everybody wants to know if they're on the list for rock or gravel this year. So we do have a map, and we can talk to people about that. We don't post it because it does change. But if anybody's interested or thinks their road is in, you know, being neglected, we can talk to them about whether it's on the list or not, or what we can do. If it's not on the list, it usually takes about all summer to get the rock and gravel hauled. So this is a long process, and hey. So I wanted to kind of present that to you guys. I know you've heard it before, but it's that time of year. Any questions?
No.
People do call, why is my rock red? Why is their rock white? I try to explain it, but
Mm-hmm.
they do still wonder sometimes.
Yeah.
They think one is better than the other, and if it's a high traffic road, they feel like, you know, it should be.
Yeah. The interesting part is, I don't know if it's half and half, but half the calls think one product is better, half the other, and they're requesting the opposite material. So it's a,
I get it.
you know, if it's not a big deal to change and try to help people out, we'll do that. But for the most part, it's already predetermined. So we have a limited enough quantity of each material that we want to haul, and so we're trying to fit all that material in the best way possible.
But like you said before, you know, you're also looking at trying to combine materials to create a better effect for some of it.
Yeah, we're
So
doing
you
that
have
on,
a few sample roads, miles that you're doing that combined?
you know, last year we started mixing material for this,
So we could all watch it?
well, this year we
That way
probably,
you have more traffic.
Oh, that's right.
I don't know,
Everybody be looking at the polka dots.
I
Come on.
I don't know what the number is, but I think we probably have 60 miles or something we're mixing material on this year, so it's not gonna be a trial as much as it is what we're hoping to do moving forward with a portion of the miles.
So the mixture last year was mostly the crushed concrete and gravel.
We did two things. We did mix a lot of rock and gravel, but we also did a limited number of crushed concrete and gravel. And, you know, we're still monitoring those and seeing how they turn out. We don't have a concrete source readily available at this point, so we aren't planning to do that much this year.
Too bad we can't get a hold of that stuff up at Rembrandt.
That is a saga, and you're right. We haven't been able to get much out of there. We did pull 700 ton out of there or something, 1,200. There are several parties to the agreement, and we only know our part, and so we're trying to participate and cooperate the best we can, but it just isn't working out. Well, I think that's all I have for updates today. Our guys are jumping around doing work orders and tile work, and updates every day on that if you want to know about anyone specific.
So did I see you up by the north of Lake Mills checking out that
The drainage ditch work,
drainage ditch?
I haven't been out there yet.
I stopped and took some pictures too. I know it's coming up here yet, but
Yeah.
you might want to stick around.
Yeah, I can do that.
Bill, are you on? All right, do you have anything else?
No.
For roads?
No.
I didn't either. We'll move on to auditor's office.
There she is.
You never answer your phone.
Well, I was on my way here.
I am on, but it's hard to turn a corner and unmute your phone at the same time.
Did you have anything for roads, Bill?
No, not anything specific I can think of.
All right, we'll move on to drainage issues.
I just have DD 92, I didn't put it on here. There's so much water that they're not able to actually work on it right now, so we'll just see how it goes as far as if they're gonna need an extension when it comes time, yeah. But there's just too much water, it's too sandy, they're not able to do anything.
Refresh my memory, what was the deadline?
Don't know. Spring, probably May, end of May. So I'm going to assume that it'll take a little bit of time.
Oh, this week should help a lot.
Let's hope so,
Get that water
I'm
level.
not sure if it's gonna help out there.
yeah.
It's
No kind of weather that turns sand into clay.
not
Fortunately.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
not a,
So I know Jacobson Westergaard has been out there checking on it pretty much daily,
Yeah.
just to see how it's going.
did you see the photos too?
Yeah.
I took some more too.
Yeah.
What do you do?
When I took my basement, I had a pocket of that just in one spot. Thank God the whole thing wasn't that way.
So if it turns into a riprap situation, that's the only thing it's just gonna, does that fix that?
I believe we should just wait and see what Colin thinks and let the engineers kind of watch that. See what they recommend.
Anything else for drainage? All right, well, we'll move on to open forum.
Next up.
Thanks, Chris.
Are you on open forum? Did I hear that?
Yep.
I'm sorry. I don't know if you've driven by the site, you can see that things are moving along. It's sped up quite a bit in the last month. With the roof is on, the windows, most of the windows are in. There's at least one door. Scheduled to do concrete this week in the lower level and the aprons out in front and behind the building. And a well driller is scheduled to come anytime now. We're ready for him. They're roughing in the LP. We'll be roughing in the LP and then the septic system. They've stubbed out for that. The septic field is already on the west side there. Of course, with all that activity comes increased bills, monthly bills, expenditures. And initially, the Board of Supervisors had approved the $500,000 of the ARPA funds, and we used $145,000 to pay part of the last claim last month. And what we'd like to do is be able to use some of that balance, the $355,000, to pay this month's bill and part of next month's bill. Now, the foundation has funds available as well, and they've been contributing. They've contributed $650,000 since we started getting bills from the contractor, which would have been, I guess it was in October when they first broke ground. I think we got our first bill probably at the end of October. Pretty small dollar amounts, but. And I notified Carla a week ago last week that we would like to do a budget amendment. And we'd like to be able to use these, we're not asking for more money, we're just asking to use the $355,000 now so that we can pay these next two bills. And we'll also use some of the foundation's money. They're meeting next Monday to transfer funds. They meet as needed. When I contact them, they will have a meeting to transfer funds to Winnebago County or write a check to Winnebago County Conservation Board. So again, it's not asking for any additional money at this time.
Why would you not use the foundation funds first?
Well, we don't want to draw those all the way down because we do have some expenses like the well that are based on, we got a grant for 75% of the well. It's based on a reimbursement. So we've got to pay for it and then we file a reimbursement. It might take a month or so. We also, I'm working, putting together the application yesterday and today, to apply for our CAT grant reimbursement, or at least parts of it. So when I submit that, I can submit that electronically. Yeah, it should be less than a month, maybe several weeks. And we get about 19 cents on the dollar that we've expended, so up to $250,000 for our CAT grant. And with this submittal, we should get approximately $150,000 from them. And I'm not sure on the timing when that will come back. So I just don't want to have the foundation draw down too low. And then we also have had several change orders. None of them have been very big. We had one back in last July. It was a little over $7,200. We had one just about 4 weeks ago for over $6,000. So we've kept those to a minimum. And those were several items that one of them was the Iowa code had changed since the bids were let on the elevator, and we needed audio and video, so we had to add that. And then most recently, this last change order was a footing that was not included in the original, so we had to add that. Now, we haven't paid that yet, of course, but that will be an addition. We just don't want to draw it down to the point where we would, the one thing I asked the contractor, the general contractor, Kinglands, in the beginning is, can they give me an indication of what the next month's bill would be? And they said it kind of depends on the subcontractors. Subcontractors can order materials, have it on site, and get paid for parts of it. So the bills do fluctuate. Like I said, I knew from the past month's activity that the bill would probably be higher this month, but I didn't know until yesterday morning. So that's all I'm asking, is just to be able to expend those funds now versus after July 1st.
So now, I'm trying to remember how we budgeted for that. That was budgeted for the next year?
Yeah, when we started talking about ARPA funds, or any contribution the county was going to make, we just kind of had to estimate how much we needed this fiscal year versus next fiscal year. And that was back in June, July, I guess it was. So it was a guesstimate based on, Kingland did provide us with a calendar of when things are scheduled to be done. But like, for example, some of the concrete work was scheduled to be done about a month ago. It'll get done this week, and it's going to get done pretty quick. So a few things they're right up on as far as schedule, and some other things are a little behind on, but they seem to be able to make up ground pretty quick when they have good conditions and when you have the subcontractors there they need.
So we will have to do an amendment because of the money going earlier.
Yeah, we would. Carl, I guess, can address that, but yeah, we would definitely need to do an amendment. And what I was suggesting is that we just do for the full amount of the balance that's left, and we'll see how that goes up here in the next two. We'll have this month's bill, and we'll have another one in June. And they'll be moving inside, so they'll be framing things up, and I think the outside wraparound porch and roof will go on sometime maybe in the next June, sound like around the 1st of June or so. So that's kind of where we're at. And the foundation, since about the 1st of January, we've raised through grants and donations about $100,000. And we've got we have a match grant still going on that was announced last fall, and we had another anonymous donors, a couple that donated before that would allow us to use their donation as a match. So we've got more match money available, which helps. People like to know that their dollars can be doubled by making a donation. So that's where we're at.
Okay.
And that claim would get turned in, well, I'd bring it in next week, it'd get paid the week of the 15th.
As long as you do your paperwork on the amendment.
Yeah, whatever Carla wants from me, she'll have to.
I'm fine with that too,
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
as long as we always remember that these are funds that are going to be returned
Well,
to the county.
Yeah,
this is
Not
after
all
the
of it.
500.
Yeah,
After, yes.
yeah, correct. Yep. That's the goal.
That's the goal.
Anything else for open forum?
I need you to, one's for you, these you to look at, and then I need you to sign all 3 copies of this on the back page.
Try to remember to do when I get back. I can put that in the session and somebody else was going on. Sounds good. All right. Thank you, guys. Great work. I know. You can't miss his voice. I had a feeling that's what that's all about.
Then here's the claims.
All right, consider for approval semi-monthly county claims. Bill, did you get a chance to look at the claims? I know they came out 2 different
I
times.
did. I can make the motion.
All right,
I'll second.
got a motion from Jensvold and a second from Smith to approve the semi-monthly county claims. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. All right, we stand adjourned until our next meeting. Have a good one, Bill.
All right, thanks.
Did you say stand adjourned?
Until our next meeting.
God willing, and the creek don't rise, or what is that old saying?
Let's not talk about Lake Knowles like that.
Oh,
What? Oh. Jeepers.
she's taking over.
Oh, no,
She's
I
stamped
should
it
not,
beside
don't let
her.
me talk.
I'll remember you said that.